Hey, what's up, everybody? We are back today talking about building out our Nilfgaardian Empire deck. If you check the channel, there should already be videos up for the Northern Realms deck. There should be one up for the monster deck. So this is the Nilfgaardian Empire deck, and there may or may not be one go up for Scoia'tael. I may put one up just to finish out the series, or I may not do Scoia'tael. I haven't. I've only played like 20 or so games with the Scoia'tael deck, and um, I'm. It's very versatile, but I'm not that crazy about it, so I don't know if I want to do a video. I don't know how much positive stuff I have to say. But anyways, let's jump into the deck. First thing we're gonna do is check out our leader cards. You're gonna find with this deck that this is a great deck to play once you have it fully built out. It's it's just a good all-around deck. It's got some great leader abilities. So the first one we'll talk about is this one here on the right. So you get your 4 leader cards just like you do in every other deck. This says draw a card from your opponent's discard pile. This is just a superb ability. You can never go wrong running this leader card. I don't have anything bad to say about this. I know that's strange, right? I just don't have anything bad to say about this leader card. It's definitely one that I will run more often than not. The other one that I really like is this one here. So cancel your opponent's leader's ability. This one, I would run this if you run into a leader on the opposing side that has an ability that you hate, and you just want to get rid of it and run neutral leader cards through the round. Sometimes you'll have to play against this one when you're playing against another Nilfgaardian army deck or Nilfgaardian Empire deck. However, in certain decks, like the Northern Realms deck, where there's the Foltest card that does clear weather, you can kind of invalidate that and potentially screw up a deck build based on the fact that they can no longer clear weather at any time. Things along those lines. Scoia'tael starting or being able to draw a card first in the round, so they draw an extra card at the beginning of the round. The Scorch deck has the leader that has the close combat Scorch ability on her, so this is a really good leader card for invalidating the leaders of the other factions. I really like this one, but generally will only run it if I am having a problem with a deck I'm playing against, and B, that problem could be hedged just a little bit if I were to invalidate their leader's ability. So the other one is look at 3 random cards from your opponent's hand. I don't really like this. It seems like a waste. If you could look at your opponent's entire hand, that would be really, really helpful, because it would let you know at any given time when you use this if it's safe to play a card in a specific manner. So you could know if you're safe to drop something on the siege line because they have no torrential rain, or safe to drop a high point value card or a group of high point value cards because they have no Scorch. Or you're able to, do that monster. So you're able to set up your tight bond cards down in the close combat line because they don't have the close combat Scorch dragon in their hand. Things along those lines. With it, the fact that it's only 3 random cards from your opponent's hand, if they still have 10 cards in their hand, or if it's a deck that you're playing against that has spies, and they wind up carrying 12 cards in their hand, or 14 or something along those lines, it just makes this it's too random for my taste. It could work out good for you. You may get a peek at a really good card that you were wondering about. But in general, I would run either one of these before I would run this, just for the fact that this is a little too random for my taste. I like running a commander that is useful at all times, if possible, if not useful most of the time. And I just don't feel this is useful most of the time, so it doesn't fall into my category that these both would. Like, this one is useful all the time, just for the fact that it always is doing something. This is useful, 99% of the time, because if something goes into your opponent's discard pile, there's, who doesn't love to pull it out? Especially if you play a spy on their board, it doesn't get taken off. Like against a monster deck, unless they're running decoys, there's no way for them to get a spy card off their board. It goes into their discard pile. You just use this card and yank your spy out of their discard pile and play it again. It's it's awesome. I love this that leader for that reason. So the last one is pick a Torrential Rain card from your deck and play it instantly. You know, this is the first Nilfgaardian Empire leader that you're given. You know, that's nice, but really, have you ever been in a situation where you were like, had I had this leader or a leader card that had this ability, boy, that would have really, changed my game. I haven't. I've never been in that situation. It's always nice to be able to drop Torrential Rain on that siege line when you're playing against a heavy siege Northern Realms deck. But outside of that, nah. I mean, this guy would suck against Scoia'tael, suck against Monster, generally not be good against another Nilfgaardian Empire deck because they don't have too many siege cards. It's just really situational, and it's too situational for me to pick it over one of these in general. I mean, if you went up against a Northern Realms deck that was really siege heavy and you lost because of that, then you might come back in here and customize your deck by swapping your leader for that one match. But if you've watched the other videos that I've done on deck builds, you know I like to pick a leader that is my default leader to use for all matches, and then if I lose a match for a specific reason, I'll come back in and choose a card or a leader that is situational to achieve some purpose that relates to why I lost the match. I'm not just going to always run a one-off type leader, which is what this guy is. So if you're looking for a good leader, it's one of these guys. This guy, I believe, is a purchase or a reward. I can't remember which one he came from, but I know this guy is the reward that you get from the Gwent High Stakes tournament. So it's unfortunate that he's the last one because I honestly think he's one of the best. But it kind of is what it is. But this is definitely my favorite. So we're going to go with him for the build of the video. But you could definitely get away with running this guy as well. And I don't want to say it's just as good, but it is a valid leader to run, and it has a use all the time. So we're going to grab him and move forward and start building out our deck. So we've got a blank board here. I figure we'll go ahead and build the deck together. That seems to be the most useful for everyone. Some of the cards that you want to stick in early on is make sure you put all of the spies that you have into your deck because you want to use your spies. The name of the game with spies is spies early, spy often, and play the spy game. So we've got this spy, we've got this spy. If we scroll down here a little further, we're going to find one more. Scroll down a little further, and there is it's a hero 0-point spy, so the mysterious elf. So when I run this deck, I run these 4 spies. These 2 in particular, I can't remember for sure with him, but these guys are random rewards from playing merchants. So there is no way to just go out and get these guys. You've got to just play your merchant games and hope that you get these as a random reward. But it's always definitely nice to have more spies in your deck. If you're not familiar with using spies, some of the strategy behind using spies is A, dump a spy on the board, wait for it to get decoyed off and played back on your side, or wait for it to go in your opponent's discard pile and them to medic it out, play it back on your side, and then have decoys in your hand so that you can decoy them off your side and play them back again. The thing with spies is get them on the board, get them off the board, get them back on the board. Is play them through as many times as you can through whatever mechanism that you have available to you to do that, whether that be medics or decoys. The nice thing about the Nilfgaardian Empire deck is that it has a shit ton of medics. So that's definitely useful when you're playing the spy game against another spy-heavy deck, or at least a deck that has the capability of running decoys and does so. You're going to find that every deck can run decoys, but not all decks do run decoys. So that is it for spies. The next cards that I would definitely include would be your medics. I don't like the 0-point medic because there are so many other medics in this deck that I feel like running him is a potential opportunity cost of running him is high because I could potentially not draw this one instead of him. And at least this is a 1-point card where he's a 0-point card. If he was a 0-point siege line medic that added, +1 to all of my siege cards, okay, then yeah, he's got some value. But as a 0 point card, I just don't see that he has value. If you don't have other medics, absolutely run him in your deck. But once you have your deck built out, I don't think he's someone that you put in your deck. So I'm going to drop both of these guys into my deck. The next medic that we are going to grab and put in is all the way up here. He's a hero card. That's Menno. We're going to drop Menno in because he has a medic ability, and then we're also going to go grab Yennefer and put her in because she has a medic ability. So these two medics are going to be one-and-done medics, and what that means is you're going to play them on the board. They're going to be able to pull a card out of your discard pile, and then that's it. These two medics, you have the ability to put it on your board, pull a card out of your discard pile, and then if you have a decoy handy, you can decoy these medics off the board and play them back and pull yet another card out of your discard pile. And shit, if you've got another decoy handy, you can do it all over again. So that's what I really like to run non-hero medics with my hero medics, because it gives me some options to play in different ways and to take advantage of some more advanced strategies in the game. So I really like to have these medics in my deck for that reason. Next cards I would dump in have got to be these guys right here. The Impera Brigade Guard. The reason is they have this wonderful tight bond ability. You can say place next to a card with the same name to double the strength of both cards. So we have 4 of them. We're going to dump all 4 of them in our deck. If you're used to playing the Northern Realms deck, then you're familiar with the tight bond ability. This is just like the Reaver's Dragon Hunter or the Blue Stripes Commando. It's the same thing. If you put 1 down, you've got 3. If you put 2 down, both cards become 6, and third card, and so on and so forth. So it just becomes a multiple when you put these guys down. They're a great addition to your deck because they give you some utility as far as throwing out a few. They're lower point value cards. I got it. I understand. But if you get them in multiples, they become very useful. That's why I like to include them in my deck. You obviously don't have to run them. And shit, I'm now remembering that I didn't start this video off the same way I start all these other videos. Let's put our caveat in here mid-video. This is not the only way to build a Nilfgaard deck. This is not the only way to play a Nilfgaard deck, and this is not the only strategy involved in building, playing, or using a Nilfgaard deck. You can play your deck however you want to. I'm not telling you have to do it my way. I'm just making some suggestions that I hope you find helpful. So, end caveat, we'll go back to building our deck. The next thing that I would put in here is I would grab this heavy Zakarian Fire Scorpion and dump it in. It's a 10-point card, which is awesome. It is Scorch bait because it's not a hero card. You know, it's high points, non-hero, so it could get scorched off, but I still like to run it because it gives me a high point value card I can dump on the board, and it goes on another line other than my range line or my close combat line. So I do like to run this card. These guys, love running these guys. Once again, they're high point value. They go on the range line, and they're definitely Scorch bait if you put 1 down and you now have the highest point value cards on the board. But the nice thing about them is if you're running these medics like we are, you have the ability, if one gets scorched, just play your medic and yank it back out of your deck. If another Scorch comes out, big deal. They just burned both of their Scorches to get rid of this one card twice. I'm fine with that. You fine with that? I think you would be. So, no big deal. If they're Scorch bait, that's fine. You've got medics to deal with the Scorch bait, unlike with your monster deck where you're so heavily reliant on your musters that if an entire muster gets scorched, you don't have medics. I mean, you have Yennefer potentially, but you can only pull 1 card out, and that's it. With these guys, that's not a big deal. So if they get scorched off, it's, in my opinion, not the end of the world. It's something that you could probably expect to have happen, and if it did, you would be okay with it. The reason I don't run this card is it is another Siege Line card, but it's a 5-point value card, and so it's middle of the road for me. I like to build this deck in a way that I have lots of high point value cards, and every card that's in there is really serving a purpose for me. So that's why it's not in there, because in my opinion it doesn't really serve a purpose. If I could guarantee to draw it and I'd always have a Siege Line of 15 that I could Commander's Horn, maybe. But outside of that, I don't want to add just 1 more card on an off chance that it might get drawn, maybe sometimes. And then if I did have a Commander's Horn, then I could maybe, you know what I mean? It just doesn't, the logic doesn't fit foot for me on that. So I leave it out. Next cards I would put in, let's go up and look at our neutral hero cards. So if you're going to dump hero cards in, I always recommend that you dump in your highest point value hero cards over any other hero cards you might have, just for the fact that if you're going to put in a hero card, why not put in your highest point value hero cards? If they don't have any abilities on them, like, say, Menno does, Menno's a medic. I don't care if he's 5 points, 10 points, or 20 points. He's going in because he's a hero card, which means he can't be scorched. 2, he's got points on him, which is great. And 3, he's got an ability. He's a medic, so he goes in. Now, just because he's a black... he's got a black stripe on him, which means he's a Nilfgaardian Empire hero, doesn't really matter to me. This 10-point hero versus this 15-point hero, or this one, Geralt or Ciri always wins that decision because they've got more points on them. There's no reason not to run these over another hero card. We're going to put a lot of cards in our deck and then talk about which ones you could maybe take out to increase your chances of drawing other cards. But for right now, we're going to toss them all in and then talk about what we might pull out a little bit later. So Geralt's going in, Ciri's going in. We're going to throw Letho of Goulet, or Gullet as I like to call him. And we're going to put Morvron in there. We're going to put Tibor in. And those are the 3 hero cards that have no abilities that are specific to the Nilfgaardian Empire deck. And then Ciri and Geralt are the 2 hero cards that have no abilities that are specific to the neutral realm. They can be put in any deck. The other hero cards that you saw already would be the Mysterious Elf, who's a spy, and then these 2 medics, Yennefer being neutral and Menno being specific to the Nilfgaard deck. So we've got, we need to come up with at least 2 more cards to dump in our deck. So what are we going to put in there? We are going to dump in this wonderful dragon. You can see this ability. Destroy your enemy's strongest close combat units if the combined strength of all of his or her close combat units is 10 or more. This is a fantastic card. The only problem with it is, just like your spies that I was talking about early on, this is also a random reward from playing a merchant. So you can't guarantee you're going to get it at any specific time. You just got to play until that pool of random cards that they can possibly give you is exhausted, and eventually you will get this card. So we're dumping that in our deck because we like that. It's kind of a novelty card. But, or maybe instead of novelty, I'll call it utility. However, I really do like to have it. It can give certain decks a real bad day if somebody's running lots of close combat units and you do something like drop like a Biting Frost on them, which takes them all down to 1 point value. Then every card on the close combat line is the highest point value, and instead of scorching off 1 card or 2 cards, you can wind up taking off 10 cards off their close combat line because they all have a 1 point value at the time. So this is unlike a Scorch. You can see it doesn't affect your cards. It doesn't say any card on the board or the strongest cards on the board. It says destroy your enemy's strongest close combat units. That's why I like this, because it differs from Scorch in just a little bit, so it makes it useful in certain scenarios. You're not always going to find places where you can play this card, so if it goes into your hand and you're not sure, maybe it's something that you redraw at the beginning, but I do like to include it because it is one of my more favorite cards in the game. Alright, we still need to come up with 1 additional card to put in our deck, and honestly, my vote goes for Triss because she is a 7-point value card and she is a hero card, which means she's got high points, she can't be scorched, she can't be buffed either, but in all honesty, the cards that we're running here, we're really not doing a shit ton of buffing of these cards. We're running lots of heroes, we're running high point value cards, and although we may drop a Commander's Horn down on our siege line or our ranged line, we're not setting them up so that we have to have other cards in that line to make up for the fact that these might be low point value cards that are getting buffed. Each one of these, when they get a Commander's Horn dumped on their line, they immediately become 20-point value cards, so which is huge. So I do not feel the need to run a bunch of the random other cards that are in this deck that have no abilities on them. The other cards that you might include early on, if you have them, would be these guys, the Nausicaa Cavalry Riders, because I believe they're a lot. They're either completely or all but one is purchased from a vendor, so it gets you tight bond cards early on. They may go in your deck early. They're not in my deck now because they have a lower point value. There's only 3 of them. If I know these guys have a 3-point value, but there's 4 of them, so higher chance of drawing them. They're 1 point higher, so I think they work better than these guys. The other ones would be the Young Emissaries. You may run the Young Emissaries. I occasionally throw them into my deck because if you can draw both of them, then they work well together because they will immediately both become 10-point value cards. The only problem with it is as soon as you drop one on the board, it may be okay, but as soon as you drop both of them on the board, then you have 2 10-point value cards on the board, and if a Scorch comes out, these guys are going down to Scorch immediately. The other thing is with the Dragon card, if it's in your opponent's hand, these guys can easily go down to the Dragon card as well. So just because remember, this says equal to 10 or more. Or it doesn't say equal, it says is 10, but 6 of 1, half a dozen, right? So that's something you're going to need to play with and see how it winds up working out for you, whether these become useful additions to your deck or whether they're detracting from your deck's playability and success. So we're going to put them in there for now and just kind of leave them there until we get in a little bit later and start talking about cards we might remove. Dandelion might be something you drop in. The problem with Dandelion, I find, is that he only plays on the close combat line, so you're hedging your bets around being able to draw additional close combat units like these guys, get them out, and also have Dandelion in the same draw where you can buff them. So I generally won't run Dandelion. It's not like the monster deck where the majority of my cards are close combat cards, and I'm counting on being able to buff them. The Nilfgaardian Empire deck that I build doesn't set up that way, so I wind up leaving Dandelion out. Okay, so some other cards that you may want to include are Clear Weather. I always like to run at least 1 or 2 Clear Weathers in my deck. If you've got 3, run 3. Clear Weather is always good because it does save your behind when you wind up running into situations where, say you did dump these 2 guys on the board, they didn't get scorched, you've got a Commander's Horn on them, and then all of a sudden, boom, here comes Impenetrable Fog, and these 40 points of cards that you had there are now each 4, which sucks. So it's nice to have a random Clear Weather in case you need it. I don't find that it is a make or break in a game. It just can be a helpful card to include in your deck. Scorch, I always run 3 Scorches in my Nilfgaardian Empire deck. I feel it gives me some versatility that I like. I generally will run 2 Commander's Horns, and I always run 3 decoys. This is non-negotiable. I told you you don't have to build your deck in a certain way. Yeah, you do in this case. You have got to run all of the decoys you have. If you have 1, run 1. If you got 2, run 2. If you have 3, run all 3. Reason is, when these spies go out, outside of... No, I don't want to even say that. I was going to say outside of playing the monster deck, but I've played monster decks that run a ton of decoys. So when you put spies on the board, they get taken off and put back on your side. You want to be able to decoy them off. And if you're not running decoys, you can't do that. You're counting on being able to medic them out of your discard pile, and you can't always count on that. You want to build your deck for versatility in all situations and still have it be successful across the board. So that's why I would say you must run your decoys all the time and all of them that you can fit into your hand. Now, you obviously can only ever get 3 of them, but 3 is fucking wonderful in my opinion. So you can see we're actually we're full on our special cards. If you had to take special cards out of your deck, which ones could you take out and be okay? Oh, God. I would be okay with dropping a Clear Weather, a Scorch, and a Commander's Horn. Going a little bit leaner on these guys wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I would only do that if you are truly, truly having trouble with card draw. If you're just constantly not drawing cards that are useful to you, or not drawing the card combinations that are useful to you. All of these cards are useful, but they need to be set up well in order to be effective. Maybe I would do that to see if I could influence the randomness of the card draw or the chances of pulling other cards out. But generally, I don't touch these guys. I leave them as is. I run with 10 special cards in my Nilfgaard deck. If you watch my Northern Realms deck, you saw that that was not something I did for various reasons. Let's see, what other cards could you take out if you were going to take cards out to get down to the 22 card unit limit? You could definitely dump these guys. Sometimes I do, just because I'm trying to influence my card draw a little more. You could also drop out Letho, Tigor, Morvan. I know they're hero cards. Who wants to drop hero cards? But you could get rid of them, and you would probably be okay. You could dump the dragon, although, I love the dragon. You could dump Triss because she's a 7-point hero card. I mean, I would dump her before I went into dumping any one of your 10-point hero cards. That's obvious, but I figure I say it anyways. So those are cards that you could take out of your deck if you're trying to get down to that card unit minimum. So you can see that if we drop these guys out, it brings us to 22. If we drop her out, it goes to 21, and now it's not considered a full deck. So if I had to get down to 22, that might be how I would set up my deck, by getting rid of those guys. Because even collectively, the two of them would have to go on the board to become 10-point value cards. Whereas individually, these guys are each 10-point value cards independent of one another. Or, sorry, these three guys are 10-point value cards independent of one another. If I draw one of them, I've got 10 points. If I draw both of these guys, I've got 20 points. So it's really dependent on if you're able to draw both of them to the point where they actually become very valuable. Whereas if you just draw one of these guys, he's guaranteed to be worth 10. With these guys, you're kind of gambling. So if you had to make that decision, that might be some cards to sacrifice out of your deck in order to get down to the unit minimum within building a deck. But you may throw these guys back in because you are playing the spy game a lot, like against a Northern Realms deck. Maybe you're drawing really low into your deck, where at the end of a game you're always running into a situation where you've got maybe 2 cards left in your deck or 4 cards left in your deck, and you're thinking, man, if I could draw into these guys, it'd really be a boon for my game. Well, toss them in there. Hell, toss these guys in there if you want. Something along those lines. You can always mix up your deck a little bit and see how it changes your play by adding cards, but in general, if I had to run with the minimum card limit on my deck and with special cards included, I run the max special cards with this, and this is kind of how my deck stacks out. This has been a very successful deck for me. There is not a person I have played against that I have thought, damn, I should have run another deck for this. So I think with this setup, it gives you enough utility to be successful against just about every deck you're going to run into out in the game. So give it a try. Let me know your thoughts. I always appreciate comments in the channel. I always appreciate your feedback. I know not one thing works for everyone. That's why I wanted to put the caveat in the video and said, hey, this is just my build. This may not be the build for you. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. If you have any other thoughts, put them in the comments. If you're looking for more Gwent related videos, please check out the video description. There's links to all of the Gwent videos from the channel, from the Gwent quests, the secondary quests that give you Gwent cards, where all the merchants are that sell Gwent cards, and where all the merchants are that you can play for random Gwent card rewards, like these 2 spies and like our dragon. Love the dragon. So, I think we're going to change his name to Puff. We're just going to call this guy Puff from here on out anytime we do a Gwent video. So, that's it. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.